Welcome to the Confidently Balance Your Hormones podcast. My name is Dee Davidson, and I'm a hormone health expert, master mindset coach, and multiple wellness business entrepreneur. I'm obsessed with helping you experience hormone balance, confidence, self-love, and live a life full of joy. I know we're about to have so much fun together, so thank you so much for pushing play today. And now let's begin. Welcome to another episode of Confidently Balance Your Hormones. This is your guide, Dee Davidson, and I have invited my friend Denise today to be a guest on the podcast because I think there is so much need for what Denise brings to this world and how she's helping people. I consistently hear about women struggling to choose themselves, and especially when they're in relationships with their partner is not the healthiest or not supportive, not making the same choices. It can be quite a struggle, and I believe in having a support team. We all need different supports, and when you work with someone like Denise, you can have some support around your relationship and the most important relationship, which is the relationship with yourself. I refer to this as personal responsibility. And yet, you got to take charge of your own health, joy, and your hormones. That all begins with you. So Denise is a licensed mental health counselor turned marriage coach and mentor who is deeply committed to saving marriages and keeping families together. And Denise specializes in private coaching for professional midlife women and couples who want to make their marriage work. Her goal is to empower couples to break free from painful relationship patterns and master the art of effective communication so they can create the marriage of their dreams. I love that, and especially with the divorce rate these days, Denise. So welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got here. What made you start this business?
So I started my business way back in 2007. I always knew that I wanted to be a therapist, and I worked in various state facilities, and I worked outpatient facilities until I finally, in 2007, started my own practice as a therapist. And I moved into couples work probably about 12 years ago. I saw that there was a real need for people that could work specifically with couples, because the average consumer, unfortunately, doesn't understand that there's a very big difference between individual therapy and couples therapy, which I didn't know either back then. But when I opened my practice in 2007 and I started to see couples come through my door, I realized sitting with them, I did not have the right skill set to work with them. And that's when I went back and I got extensive training with some of the top gurus in the field of couples therapy. And I've been doing training over the past 12 years and have really expanded my practice to just specialize in helping couples.
That's so great. And I know that when we talked in the past, we talked a little bit about some of my clients and how they go to a bunch of different therapists. Some of them go to couples, individual therapy. I have some people that go to a weight loss therapist. Didn't even know that existed until I got into this world.
Me neither.
And I know you and I just talked a little bit about your take on someone going to their own individual therapist and then coming to you as someone who helps couples. What can you say about that, or what can you share about that?
So if I'm remembering the conversation we had about that, I think I might have been maybe against is kind of a strong word, but against sort of using individual therapy as a means to improve your relationship. And here's why, because I don't think that across the board I would say that, but here's some of my experience with that is, if somebody's unhappy in their marriage, and typically I will say it's a woman, then they say, I'm going to go to individual therapy, and they go to the individual therapist who perhaps doesn't work from a relational perspective. And so they're just meeting with that one person and they're hearing their story and they're supporting their story. And it might look something like, you don't deserve to be treated like that. You need to leave him, or that's crappy. Don't stay in that relationship. So it can actually backfire. Or, the woman might come home and say, well, my therapist said that you're controlling, or my therapist thinks that I'm right and you're wrong. And so it can actually be weaponized against the spouse and can create more problems than they actually initially had. Again, this is not across the board, but this has been a lot of my experience where it actually has caused a bigger rupture in the relationship, right? So that's why I think it's so important for couples to do that work, either do it together or meet with somebody that is going to have a relational perspective and is not only going to maybe point out things that your spouse is doing wrong, but is also going to hold you to be accountable for what you bring to the relationship as well.
Ah, yes, I love that. And I have encountered that. I'm a huge advocate for therapy, and I'm so grateful that we've come a long way from the stigma of going to therapy. I think a lot more people are embracing it and putting it in their toolbox and something that they're regularly practicing. But I have asked clients, hey, have you ever been to therapy around this, and have heard that it made it worse or made the relationship worse, definitely coming back to their significant other and pointing fingers, right? So today we'll talk about, again, personal responsibility. Keep telling yourself, if you're listening, this is my own personal responsibility. I have to stop blaming or playing a victim here. So have you encountered some women who were letting their health slide because of relationship stresses or not picking up that personal accountability?
Well, yes, 100%, right? Because it's all related, right? So if your marriage or a significant relationship is not going well, that's going to impact all areas of your life. It's going to impact your health. It's going to impact how you show up at work. It's going to impact how you feel about you. So naturally, when you're in a more vulnerable place or not kind of at your best, you're not taking good care of yourself. And a lot of the women that I've seen, even as like couples, the women have maybe stopped working out, or they're not eating healthy. They're just not prioritizing their own health and well-being,
Yes.
which compounds everything else, right? So it's like, okay, my marriage is terrible, and now I'm not taking care of myself, so I feel bad about myself. And it just kind of perpetuates that whole kind of system of problems.
Yes. So how does someone start? Like, that they're like, I know I have to take control of my well-being, and I know that my partner is not going to be supportive, or maybe they're not going to show up in the way that I'm expecting. And I again like to phrase things aspiration versus expectation, right? But they know that that's not changing. Some of these people have been married, 10, 15, 30 years. So where do they start with themselves?
Well, I just want to echo what you said, because that is the foundation of all the work I do as well, is taking personal responsibility. And it's taking responsibility as I say, as an act of love for yourself and in service of empowering yourself, right? So many people feel like, well, if I'm taking responsibility, that must mean I'm to blame. And I always make it very clear that it's not about blame, but it's actually about empowering you. So taking personal responsibility is the way to changing everything in your life, right?
So true.
If it's, yeah. And so whether your husband is supportive of your weight loss journey or health journey, or whatever the thing is that you're pursuing, it doesn't matter, right? And this is what I always say to my couples is like, it doesn't matter what the other person is doing or what anybody outside of you is doing. You always get to decide for yourself how you're going to respond, how you're going to show up, what you're going to make that mean, right? Again, bringing it back to what's within my control. And those are all things that you can control. And once people realize, okay, this isn't about blaming me. I don't have to feel like it's my fault, but this is the way to me having a better experience for myself. And then ultimately that improves the experience I have in my relationship is by owning the things that I can control. And so maybe they go and they work out regardless of whether their husband supports it or not. It's like, okay, you got to stay home and watch the kids while I go work out. And I'm going to prioritize
Yes,
that
take your
for
power
myself.
back. Take your
Yes,
power back.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's what it's all about. Right. And so if both people are doing that, right, and so oftentimes people are, and I'm so upfront with people right from the beginning now. In earlier days, I might have been reluctant to be as firm about kind of my
Sure.
beliefs around this is all about self change. So when they come and I say, and I'm clear on these calls, like if you're ready to do your own piece of work within the context of the relationship, I can't help you. But if you're
Right.
not, like you said, if you just want to be victim to what's happening, it's impossible to work with that, right? That's
So
where
true.
people maybe stay in some therapy where you just stay talking about the same issue over and over, week after week after week, without making any kind of progress, right? That's not serving you at all. So that's where the power is. Yeah.
So good. And so if someone's listening right now and they're thinking, oh, yeah, I got to do this, do you begin with working with the woman and then invite their partner in, or how does the process usually look?
Mm. So it looks a few different ways. Sometimes I will have a woman come to me solo who says, you know, I want to stay married. I'm committed to my marriage, but, I just don't, I don't like the way I'm showing up. I'm getting angry at my husband all the time. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to be this way. And that typically is a woman that's done some self-development already. It has worked on herself in the past, knows a lot about therapy and all the things, but for some reason can't apply that to her marriage. And so in which case I would work with her alone,
Okay.
and we would work on her kind of changing mindset, changing behaviors, really focusing on making small changes consistently every day over time, which is that's what really creates the bigger changes.
Sure.
So individually with women, I do that work. They do their own work. It automatically creates a shift in their partner and ultimately in their relationship. Then I have couples that come to me because they might be the people that are saying, well, I'm not going to do the work if he's not doing the work. I've already done my work, right? Like it's his time
Yeah.
or it's her time or something.
Pointing the finger.
Yes. So when they come together, both be pointing the finger at each other. Again, I'm clear on the call. Like this is about each of you having goals for yourself. And they probably feel like at that point, well, if we're both doing it together, then that's okay. Right. But
Sure.
I'm not going to be the one to do it solo. So there isn't, I usually do an individual session with each of them, and then I bring them back together. And sometimes depending on if there's a lot of conflict in the relationship, I might need more individual sessions with them. But if not, then it's typically we're going to meet weekly as a couple and work on each of them owning what they can, having different experiences of talking about things in the session that go very differently so that they can experience what it's like to actually have effective communication. And then they take that and they're able to practice that in their everyday life.
Oh,
And then come
so,
back
so
for the
good.
support and the accountability and all of that good stuff.
Communication, that word really stands out because I do find that a lot of the women come in fear of how their significant other is going to take, the news like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym, so you got to watch the littles for a couple of hours. Or, I got to start eating gluten free because my labs dictate that I have a health issue. You wouldn't believe, Denise, how many women they do labs and it says you can't have gluten because it's causing inflammation, it's setting your nervous system on fire, it's like lighting a match, and yet they're so afraid of what their significant other is going to say, still not choosing themselves. So communicating it properly as well, is so important,
Mm,
not just saying, I can't have gluten, or I'm not going to have gluten because Dee told me not to have gluten. But explaining what it's doing and the long term effects are so important. So communication is key. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, what do you think that is? A lot of people are lagging in communication. Has it always been that way, or is it more because we're on the texting and the social media stuff? What is your thought on that?
So yes, communication is huge. And what you describe about, women being, well, I don't want to bring it up. I don't know if I should bring it up. I see that so often in the couples that I work with, and it actually goes both ways. The men are equally like nervous about bringing something up. And
Sure.
what I see it as is, especially when couples have been together for a long time, these are patterns and habits, like everything else, patterns of communication that develop over years and become so, they're on autopilot. Right. This
Yes.
is just, I'm afraid. I don't know what he's going to say. I don't know what his reaction is
Yes.
going to be or what she's going to say. And we imagine the worst,
Yes.
right? But if we really imagine the worst, what is the worst? We don't ask ourselves that. We
It's so
just
true.
have sort of embodied this fearfulness of, oh, I can't say the thing, right? And when you've been doing that for 10 or 15 years, it becomes your truth. Oh, well,
Yeah.
he's not going to be supportive, or she's going to blow up, or I don't want to deal with that reaction. But what's the alternative? You continue to not, like you said, not choose yourself, not choose yourself, not choose yourself, right? So the
Yes.
one that you're betraying most in those moments is yourself,
That
right?
is
And
so
so
true.
the women and men, because it does go both ways, have to understand that that not doing it, right? Like, I just want to avoid that conflict, or I just want to avoid that like difficult conversation. That is exactly what keeps people in that cycle, in
Loop.
those
Yes.
unhealthy patterns, right?
Yes. That
It's
whole
like, let me
cycle is.
avoid.
I
Yeah.
know. And something else just stood out for me was when you said people are used to what they're used to. So a lot of the people that I'm working with, my demographic is, women ages 40 to 60. They're creating a new identity too, right? Some, like yesterday on one of my coaching calls, the woman said she is acknowledging and aware that her family has this pattern of being obese, making unhealthy choices, not getting therapy, and they're breaking generational cycles, which can be difficult. But in a partnership, too, one of the things that I hear is, whether it be partner or children or friends, they're like, who are you? And why do you want to eat healthy now? And why are you going to the gym? So that piece of it, too, is something that I think you can be so helpful with. Have you seen that a lot in your practice?
I have definitely seen it with more women, like you're saying, where they are finally choosing themselves, and it disrupts the whole relationship, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm working with a couple right now, and I won't reveal any details, but that's exactly what's happening. Gotten to a point where I think I can't continue to put myself last, and has started to um, prioritize herself in all sorts of ways, not just working out, but who am I? What do I want? What is it I desire? I've never actually thought about what it is I desire and what I want. And it is causing a huge rupture in their relationship because the husband is like, oh my God, what is happening here? Right. And so
Exactly.
I get that. Like, I get that he's fearful, right? It's, am I losing my wife? Is she
Yes.
leaving me? Like, what's happening
Yes.
here? And it's like, what I always say is, this is what has to happen in order for the two of you to grow and evolve into that
Ah,
next level, right? Because
yes.
it worked for you, husband, but it didn't work for your wife, even though she was sort of nodding yes all the way along. And finally, you get to midlife and it's like, no more, right?
Right.
So they are creating something totally different. And if he can hang on there, right? If he can
Yes.
hang on and see her through this, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's
There
just an
is.
evolution of their marriage that
And
should have happened years ago, but didn't, right?
Yeah, and what a beautiful thing. I talk to women about this all the time. When you choose yourself and you find that self-love, that confidence, that joy, how you show up in the relationship and explaining to your significant other how they're going to benefit, right? So let's talk about that. You work with many, many couples. What are some of the changes you've seen within the relationship and with these women's health?
Specifically around health.
Yes.
So I think what I've seen is when people are choosing themselves, like particularly women, when they finally say, like, I'm making a choice for me, or I'm going to control what I can control. I don't need my partner's permission. I don't need their validation. And they start to feel more confident.
Yes.
They start to use their voice. They start to speak up. They start to do more things that they want to do. You can just see it I can see it in the way they show up to my office, right? They maybe weren't taking care of themselves, and now they're fixing themselves. They're putting on nice clothes. They're walking differently, right? And so this is externally,
Right.
but imagine what's happening internally is also like the things that we can't see, the things
Yes.
that you work with women on,
Yes.
are changing on the inside.
Yes.
Right?
And when we talk about hormones, cortisol is one of the biggest ones. Your stress hormone, right? So people go, well, it's just my relationship. Tell me what to eat and tell me, what exercise to do. But relationships are very much a part of whole health and hormone balancing. If you're stressed or you don't want to go home from work and see that person, or you're afraid to ask for the time to exercise, so you're not doing it, that's going to affect your hormones. If you don't have that serotonin, another one, right, the happy hormone going, then your body's going to be off balance. So it all ties in, and that's why we call it whole health. It's really mind, body, and spirit, and relationships are a big part of that. So what is one thing, Denise, that someone listening today can start doing to improve their relationship?
So, I was thinking about this question because I know you sent it to me in the email. And so it might sound broken record, because I'm sure you preach this to your clients a lot too. Again, coming back to ownership. So if you're in a tough spot in your marriage and you're feeling like, I don't know what to do, or if this isn't going to get better, my husband this, or my wife that is the exact cue that you need to look inside, right? Because what is happening in our relationships on the outside is a reflection of what's happening on the inside for us. So for example, when I was struggling in my own marriage and blaming my husband for all the things, it was because I was lacking the relationship with myself. I wasn't feeling good about me, but I didn't see that at the time. This is where I was disempowering myself by making my husband sort of responsible for my happiness, my love, my feeling of worthiness. And when I realized that doesn't come from him, that's all an inside job, everything in my life changed. So looking inward, connecting back to yourself, and creating the most loving, nurturing relationship with yourself is the path to a better everything, really.
So true. And what a great way to end our podcast episode, because confidently love yourself, right? That's what it all comes down to. And when people start to get coaching with me or join our community, they start to realize, oh, I get why you're confidently love yourself, not some health name or things like that. Because until you confidently love yourself, you're not going to choose yourself. And so looking within is so important, and coming to the relationship as an individual and then bringing out the best in one another is the goal, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So Denise, where can people find you or connect with you?
Yes, so they can go to my website for more detailed information just about some of the programs I offer and the way I work with people. And my website is mymarriageworks.com. I also have a presence on Facebook, and it's Denise C. Fitzpatrick. And on both of those places, I do have some freebies as well. On my website, I have one, and also on Facebook too. So you might want to opt into that. You can get on my newsletter. I send out weekly emails and lots of good stuff and relationship tips.
Awesome. And who doesn't love a good freebie?
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time. And be sure to connect with Denise. She's got some great stuff out there on social media.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Confidently Balancing Your Hormones. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to share it with a friend and also hit follow at the top of this podcast. If you have a couple of minutes and you can leave a quick review, it will help other women in need find this podcast. You can find me on Instagram at confidently_love_yourself. I would love to stay connected and hear from you.